Good morning everyone, my name is Michelle, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to another video. It is Saturday morning the 9th of November. Sticking with the Delphi case today, and we are still in verdict watch. The jury have now been deliberating for, approximately 9 hours, I think. So they did maybe just shy of 2 hours on Thursday afternoon. Then they did all day yesterday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. They left just before 4 p.m. So you're looking at approximately 7 hours. So 9 hours, maybe just shy of 9 hours. They are back this morning. So Judge Gould's schedule was 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday. But there's wind that the jury are only coming at 10 a.m. today. So I don't know whether it's going to be a slightly shorter day for them, because they've only been used to doing half days on Saturdays during the trial. But I'm just hoping that there is a verdict today. When they left early on Thursday afternoon, I've got to tell you I was concerned. As I said yesterday, I was concerned, thinking maybe they've all just got a verdict and they're just too, they think it's too shady to do a really small amount of deliberating. But it doesn't look like that. It looks like they thought we're going to start afresh. Friday morning, we're going to start afresh. They got the 4-person. Maybe they've done a straw poll and they've realised that there's, division. Maybe they're split half and half. Who knows? Who knows? So, as I said yesterday, as soon as I hear that a verdict has been reached, I will go live. So, all right, what I'm going to do in this video is propose an alternate theory. This phone data will be the death of me, and no one seems to understand it. So let me propose an alternate theory that maybe, just maybe, makes a little bit more sense than the theory that the state would like the jury to believe. Let's go!
It's time for you guys to start being journalists.
Before an angry Andrew Baldwin left the courthouse, 13 News overheard him speaking to Richard Allen's wife, saying, "It ain't over. The world's watching. The world sees what's going on."
Okay, so this is the timeline that I've been working with over the last few days. This is what the state wants you to believe. All right, 700 metres from the trailhead to the middle of Modern High Bridge, approximately 700 metres, a bit less, but you've got to take into account Libby would have had to walk from wherever her phone was to Kelsey's car, so that's accurate. The 414 metres, that has to be before 218. And that amount of distance has to be done crossing the creek. So the no movement happened on the north side rather than the south side. The 50 metres doesn't make sense, and the phone registering 2 floors also doesn't make sense. Brad Webber's van doesn't make sense. Go and watch yesterday's video for a full breakdown of that. So, I want to propose an alternate theory because people are just not understanding. They're not understanding the phone data, or they're not taking it seriously enough. I don't know which. Now, yesterday, there was a roundtable event, a lawyers' roundtable event. So Andrea Burkhardt, Lawyer Lee, and Bob from Defence Diaries did a discussion. They've all been in the courtroom the whole time. They've listened to the whole trial, and they're now on verdict watch. Bob could only stay for part of the time, so Ali took over. Ali from Defence Diaries. I want to break it down, just talk about some of this. It relates to the problems with the timeline. The problems with the timeline weren't communicated to the jury by the defence, which is a problem. A big problem. Maybe it's because they don't understand it either. So let's play a little bit of this.
On the timeline too, I think one of the things that got missed was they had such a gotcha moment there with the headphones and this new piece of information that seems to be very inconsistent with the state's theory. Headphones plugged into the phone at 5:45 p.m. and then unplugged at 10:32 p.m. Not at all consistent with the state's theory of Richard Allen's involvement. But the state was able to muddy that up a little bit with this idea of, well, maybe it was dirt, maybe it was water. That's where I think they had an opportunity, like you're saying, to tie that back into the timeline and just remind people that for the state's theory to work, that phone would have had to have been exposed to the water or the dirt no later than 2:32 in the afternoon. And so what really is the explanation for why that phone would be functioning apparently pretty well up until the 5:45? What would have happened at that point to suddenly cause something to register? It just missed, I think, an opportunity to strengthen that particular piece of evidence and undermine that challenge that the state had tried to raise against it by making it seem more implausible that the state's explanation could fit.
Yeah, the headphones really was the gotcha moment, wasn't it? Really was the gotcha moment. And then Chris Cecil did a little bit Googling in the break and said, well, it could be water damage. And it could be. It could be. I talked about this on my live stream the other day. But there is a water damage indicator on the iPhone 6S. The indicator light is inside the little place where the SIM card goes. The little light in there turns red if there's water damage, so that could have been checked. It's yet another problem for the state. But I just wish the defence had picked up on that and said, look, this is another issue that the state has brought in, that they didn't check. And there's an easy way to check on the iPhone. There's a liquid problem indicator light. So we could have known if that headphone jack was activated due to water damage. And no, I don't know why suddenly it would register water damage at 5:45 and then miraculously water damage disappears at 10:32. But it could have been solved if the state bothered to bring in maybe someone from the FBI who understood iPhones better than Chris Cecil.
So then my question actually goes to both of you, since I wasn't there, because now my thought is, for Andrea, what you just said, is it true that they were establishing that there were enough steps to have made it across the creek? And if so, if the damage to the phone was from it getting wet, then how in the hell is it tracking them all the way across the creek? And then it carries over to you, Lee, with, did they point out how many flights or steps it would have taken to just get to that access road and then a car to tie together that shortage that you just talked about?
Well, based on what is now hardwired into the timeline, 414 metres between 208 and 218 had to have been done crossing the creek, because where else would they have gone if they were still on the south side of the creek? 120 metres of it is explained by the walk from the middle of the bridge to the end of the bridge. So we've got 294 metres. And if you go down the hill, which is at the shallowest place, which is about 10 feet, and then you kind of meander parallel with the road, it's like a shallow decline. And then you can cross the creek at the shallowest part and then go up the other side where the bank is shallow. That's about 250 metres. So why didn't the defence point out that the state's timeline can't work if they want to believe that Richard Allen's confession about being disturbed by a van is truthful?
They left that out. Nobody really talked about that. In closing, Rosie said, well, it was 30 feet down to the road, so that's roughly 20.
No, it wasn't 30 feet down to the road. It wasn't. Maybe if you go down the hill onto the access road, the private drive, right as you come off the bridge, it's about 3 metres, which is 10 feet. If you continue to go down the hill at that point, then yeah, you've got another drop. Go parallel with the road, that's like only a gradual decline. But it takes longer, it's a longer route. But if that's a longer route, it explains the 294 metres. I don't think anyone understands this timeline. It took me days to work this out.
Yeah, nobody talked about it. Absolutely nobody said, well, here's how many steps it is. And that seemed like even sort of an easy thing the state could start.
The phone experts agreed that those steps were accurate. And for people who are still unsure, go and watch my experiment with my iPhone, that I did a couple of weeks ago. And iPhones only record flights climbed. They only record an incline gained. They don't record a floor as going downhill. So the two floors climbed between 231 and 232 doesn't mean that the girls went down the hill at that point. It's an upward incline, not a downward decline. I promise you it is. No one understands this. Why?
The defense could have done very, very cheaply, you know, okay, we bought this many steps, how much, just literally take your phone out there and see what happens and measure it. And
Even with some basic.
Can someone do that? Can someone take an iPhone, preferably an iPhone 6, but it doesn't matter which iPhone, the Apple Health app is the same anyway, but take an iPhone out there, go to the south side of the bridge, I know you're on private property, go down the hill at this place here, and then do a gradual walk, cross the creek at the shallow place, and then go up in a diagonal movement, kind of northwest, to the crime scene. The longitude and latitude of the crime scene is in the Ron Logan search warrant. Can somebody do it? Please, somebody who's out there right now, go and do it.
Measurements, because we really didn't get any of that. We don't know how far it would have taken to get from where the girls were on the bridge to down the hill to across the creek to, you know, the location where they ended up. Even just a basic measurement of that to know whether that corresponds with the data, I think would have been extremely helpful. Now,
it would have been extremely helpful. Now, obviously, you could say, well, they may not have gone the easiest way. They may have been running about all over the place. He may have been chasing them, and that's true. Nobody knows for sure. But it's just trying to make sense of, you know, the path of least resistance, so to speak. You know, if 5'4" Richard Allen is, you know, got two girls who are both 5'4", Libby being heavier than him, and he's controlling these two girls and making them walk silently, you know, no screaming, no sounds to be heard whilst there's people around on the trails. There's houses close by, no one heard a thing. So there had to be an easy way to take them down the hill, across the creek, and up the other side. And the easiest way to do it is where the banks are the least steep, obviously. Somebody go and do it. Look, I'm not shocked that the state have never done this, because they only developed this van theory recently. But the defence could have done it. It shows that the van thing couldn't work. The van theory can't work. To fit the distance travelled in the state's theory, you have to have got over the other side by 2:18, or else it doesn't work. All right, I want to propose an alternate theory. So this is in connection to the defence's kind of loose idea that they proposed. I mean, obviously they've had both of their wings clipped. They can't use the third-party culpability defence. They can't mention any potential suspects. They just can't. They've had it all banned. But they were able to say, what if Abby and Libby were taken from the trails and brought back later? And here's how this might work, based on what we know is now hardwired into the timeline. And no, Brad Webber's van is not involved. All right, Brad Webber's van, gone. Okay, so 700 metres is accurate. Trailhead to middle of bridge. It's about 650 metres. So taking into account they won't have walked in a direct straight line, taking into account there would have been some distance recorded from going from wherever Libby picked her phone up from at home to Kelsey's car. Then 120 metres from the middle of the bridge to the end. Bridge guy, or whoever they encountered at the end of that bridge, said down the hill to the access road, and then they walked to a vehicle which had been parked somewhere, you know, inconspicuous, and that accounts for the 294 metres. Again, the vehicle might have been parked closer than 294 metres. They may not have walked in an absolute straight line. And then the phone didn't move for 7 minutes. Well, Phones don't move when they're travelling in a vehicle. What if the phone didn't move for 7 minutes because that was the travel time, 7 minutes? What do you think to that? Now, if you're going over a really bumpy road, then it might record some steps, but if you're not, it's not going to record anything. 7-minute drive. And then they walked from the vehicle to whatever building they were kept in, accounts for the 50 metres. I don't understand why that's only 68 steps, but anyhow. And then the phone registers 2 floors climbed because they were taken upstairs somewhere. So maybe it was a barn with a second floor. And they maybe climbed a ladder. And that might account for 2 floors. How about that? And then phone is not with Libby. The girls are held in this location. Why someone plugs headphones in at 5:45, I've no idea. Maybe because it rang and they wanted just to silence it. Maybe somebody said that there was an Amber Alert that went out at 5:45 on that time, like somewhere else in Indiana. So maybe that. Maybe they just plugged headphones in just to silence it. And then maybe at 10:32 they remembered their headphones were plugged in there. Maybe they turned the phone off at that point. And maybe the girls were taken back to the scene with the phone off, so it didn't register any steps or any movement. Somebody heard screaming in that area at 2 a.m. And then maybe when the murders was all done and everything was staged, they turned the phone back on at 4:33. What do you think to that? It makes more sense than the state's theory. But let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video, or hopefully the next time you see me will be when we've got a verdict, and I'll go live as soon as I hear.